Okay, welcome everyone. We're very excited to be here with our fifth panel discussion with Arbisoft. We will be talking about this time the role of EdTech and closing the education gap. And so for this session, we have three wonderful ladies who have amazing backgrounds, and I'll give them a moment to introduce themselves and so we can get to know our panel, and then we'll jump in with some great questions. So we'll start with Raluca, if you would like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. So I'm Raluca. I'm originally from Romania. I live in Netherlands, though, not too far from home. I have been in IT for 24 years in various roles. And at the same time, I'm a mentor, not only for women in tech, but also for men in tech. I currently work also in security. I have my own company called Synchromind, where we produce privacy and security games. And we also have a mental health app. So I'm quite passionate about diversity and inclusion as well. But we will talk more about it later.
Sure. Thank you. We're so grateful to have you here joining us for this panel. We'll pass it over to Bentenbi.
Thank you. Thank you for extending your invitation. I'm very glad to be here with you to join this panel. I'm Bentenbi, originally from North Africa, specifically from Algeria, and I moved to the States 4 years ago. I have been a former associate professor for more than 20 years. I don't like to talk a lot about myself, but I am passionate about all digital and specifically digital transformation. And actually, I am advisor in many startups about digital divide and digital transformation. I think that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Let's go ahead. We'll pass it to Ammara.
Hi, so this is Ammara. I lead the design thinking chapter for TANI, Pakistan. Previously, I've also worked with the learning and development department here in TANI. And I've also worked at Arbisoft a couple of years back. And we worked on a tech product, which was for a low-tech, still developing market. So yeah, and I also have a background in user experience.
Okay, wonderful. This is going to make for a great discussion, ladies. So I'll just jump it off and start off with questions. And if you feel very highly impressed, just let me know and I'll pass that question to you. But so far, all of the questions that we have this discussion are open to all of you. So let's get started. The first question is, what are some key examples of successful EdTech initiatives that you or you're aware of, and then how have they significantly narrowed the education gap?
Yeah. Can I answer, or do you want to pass it to anyone, to someone?
Oh, no,
I mean,
no, go ahead.
I mean, yes. I hope I understood the question well. I think we have several. As I come from the higher education, maybe I will give some examples in the sector. We have several EdTech initiatives, I mean, that have been made significant impact on learning, including the higher education sector. I cannot name them all, but let's name a few, like, for instance, Coursera, edX, and maybe Udacity, that offer a wide range of courses from top universities and institutions worldwide. For instance, if we take Coursera, it partners with universities like Stanford and Yale. We have another initiative, it's well known. Even before I came to the States, I was using this platform, like Khan Academy. It has been instrumental in improving access to high quality education in K-12, but also in higher education. I can also name, for instance, Georgia Tech's online Master of Science in Computer Science. That pattern, with partnership with Audacity, and is a prime example of how EdTech can make advanced education more affordable for those who cannot maybe afford. How can I say it? For those who cannot afford education in Stanford or Berkeley or world-class education, we have the MIT Open Courseware, which is very, very interesting because it provides free online access to virtually all its course content. And there is an example I want to stress in developing countries. For instance, in Ghana, for instance, in Rwanda, and I think maybe in Ghana too, but specifically in Rwanda, where the government partnered with edX platform, with the edX education platform to offer free online courses to thousands of learners, addressing the shortage of university sets. We have similar initiatives in India, in South Africa, to increase access to quality education, but EdTech initiatives are not exclusive to MOOCs. It also includes other initiatives like virtual laboratories and simulations, specifically for STEM education. We have a very interesting, I think, example or platform called Labsters. I don't know if I can name some platforms like Labster, for instance, which inspires students to stay in STEM. And maybe the last example I can give is in language learning sector. I think we all know and maybe have been using Duolingo. Even from Algeria, I have been using this platform and this app that have made it easier for individuals to acquire language skills, which can be a significant barrier to higher education for non-native English speaker. I'm sorry, maybe my English.
Oh no, you're fine. You're good. Thank you.
Yeah, I know I have an accent, but I'm doing my best to speak as clearly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. You're doing a wonderful job. You named several initiatives that I'm even aware of that are household names that are definitely leading the force in EdTech and closing those the gap that's there. Did anyone else want to address this question?
I also had Duolingo on my list, and the Drops is a competition of Duolingo. The reason why I like it is because it brings the playfulness as well into education. Because if you look at, let's say, classic education, there was a lot of interaction in there. There was a lot of motivation. Sometimes we were not taking it serious because you can't be serious all the time. So I like that they introduced that element as well. And also, when I researched preparation to this, I saw that TED is considered also on this list. And if you look at the number of views and the impact that they had, it is huge. So these are the two ones I want to add to your list.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and I think that one of the most commonly used, but probably the most ignored product for education in the recent years has been Zoom itself. And the reason I say it, because when COVID hit, a lot of countries were not that proficient with online learning and online education, right? Especially with the school systems. With university, yes, there might be a lot of universities might have some systems in place for digital education, but that's not the case for schools and colleges. And that's where Zoom came in. I think it was never meant to be used this way. But I think a lot of features were developed and improved and enhanced and added on during that period and afterwards as well, after they saw how people were using it, right? So you can do annotations, you can draw while on calls. I think all of these features sort of added on to that whole education experience, along with some other basic tools, which I'm sure nobody expected it to be like that. But it was so easily adopted by the market itself. And the other startup or company that I can think of is actually something that was an inspiration when I was working on that EdTech product for a developing market. And that is based out of India. It's called Byju's. And it's not just about the product or what they're trying to do with it. I think it was more about how they targeted their audience market. Because, see, like that audience, that market, this market itself there's a lot of room and there's a lot of gap where you need to convince those users to trust in online education and trust that online education works, right? And they do not necessarily want to invest in it, but they might be willing to experiment and try it out. And what they did is that they actually did door-to-door sales to introduce that online education system. So like a physical, real human being sales rep goes door to door to each house and knocks on it and tells them about the product and offers them some sort of voucher or some sort of arrangement where they can try it out for a limited period and then they can be converted into paid users. So I think that was one of the greatest examples of how a digital system, especially for education, has been adopted by real life intervention. And it's not just digital online sales which is influencing, but it's more like influencing the user's behavior and that.
Wonderful. Yes, thank you, ladies. Those are all great EdTech examples that we have today. And several of you mentioned the next question, so I'll lead right into that one. What challenges do underserved communities face in assessing EdTech and utilizing it? And if you can think of a way, how can those be addressed, those challenges?
Repeat the question, please. Repeat the question.
Oh, of course. Yeah. What challenges do underserved communities face in assessing and using EdTech?
Oh,
I can go first. Yeah. I think one of the key thing here is lack of high tech. So not having the proper technology or not having connectivity per se is one of those. And since I work in a telecom now, I understand the value of it, because when you go to areas which are far-fetched out north or they're not near urban cities, connectivity is a major issue there. And there's still a lot of people who live there, who study there, and a lot of people also work online. But when they do not have any connectivity, they can't even use their phones, right? And that has been the case in the recent times with increasing fuel prices, increasing power cuts. All of those are leading to the connectivity being disturbed. So the towers don't operate, and then there's no network in the whole city or in the whole village. So what will you do even if you have devices, right? So I think that's one of the major challenges that right now developing countries face.
I would like to add to that and use as an example the Ukrainian refugees, because children had to study. And most of these apps, I'm going to go a little bit technical, are built for one user at one time. So then if you have multiple kids with one device, it's very hard for them to access. So most of these tools, let's take Zoom. You know, I can only access it one time from my device. There can't be any other sessions and things like that. So that's a big limitation at the moment that they face. And think of, let's say, third world countries that during COVID, they had to go in lockdown, and a lot of kids could not access any of these platforms because they didn't have even tablets. And if you look at tablets, within a year or 2 years, they already are not technically good for these apps because they're always built for high performant devices. So that's at least two limitations that, for me, from my perspective, technically, we should be addressing them when we build such solutions.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, there is also cost. I think Ammara was talking about infrastructure, right, Ammara?
Yeah.
About about which is a big issue worldwide. I mean, maybe more in developing countries. Just for your information, there is, according to the last digital report, we have 37% of the global population which is disconnected, which who has not access to the internet. 37, yes, 37%. Okay, but we have also, in addition to what Ammara and Raluca said, we have also the cost of digital learning, which is not, I mean, not all people can afford high quality education. Okay, I insist on high quality education because I have a dream. My dream is to see everyone, even in Ghana or in Africa, or have the same quality education that someone in Stanford or in Berkeley University. And believe me, we have great minds in these regions. They just need. I'm not only talking about Africa. I'm sure in maybe even in America there are some people who cannot afford this quality. I mean, world-class education. Okay, so the cost is a big issue for people to have access to higher education, to high quality education, and even to EdTech solutions sometimes. Okay, because there is economic, I mean, disparities.
Yeah,
we have also cultural barriers. Not everyone believe in. I focus a lot on.
Oh, did we lose her? Oh no. Well, when she returns, we will let her finish her statement. But she led us to.
While we wait for her, I can add one more. I just realized it, which is language. If you look at most of these courses are in English. And you know, rarely, well, AI is going to come and do a lot of translations for us in the next 5 years. There's going to be a big shift. But this is another limitation. I see a lot because our games, we did them in English. We did a survey and people said, oh, we want in English. But then we see that this much more successful, which it's in their native language. People learn differently in their own language.
Absolutely. That's a really great point. Yeah, we lost you. You're muted now, though.
On the bottom left, you have to press the unmute. Bentenbi.
Bentenbi, you're muted. Yeah.
Yes. So cultural barriers, geographic barriers, and socio-economic barriers. I think that's what I have to say for this question.
Oh, that's great. That's great. What Raluca added to what you were saying is language as well. And so you kind of brought up the next kind of question, and it had to do with affordability. How can EdTech support those underserved communities who may not be able to afford the high-tech, world-class education that they may be deserving of? How do we address the affordability of EdTech across the globe?
I think reduce high costs first. This is very important. you know, when we reduce costs, we can reach more people. So it's a win-win, I think, if we, do you understand what I mean? I mean, yeah, I mean, we can reach, I mean, education can go worldwide. So this institution, educational institution, if they reduce the cost, they can reach more people around the world. As I gave the example of Rwanda, who partnered with edX. Okay, and of course, I think that partnership between even governmental institution, governments and this educational institution is the key, because it's, I mean, not as I say, instead of letting people pay for their education, I don't know, for the government can partner with this education institution.
That could be a great solution. Absolutely. Yes. Anyone else wants to address the how to overcome the
I want to
affordability?
add, but I need to make an introduction first. I want to talk about conscious products and conscious businesses. So, you know, conscious product is built by conscious people. What are conscious people? People who live in awareness. And when we go to a conscious business, at the end of the day, they are businesses. They do have to pay for their servers. And we talk about infrastructure, cloud, and not only cloud, on-prem, they cost money. But what I noticed, because I have to say I do quite a lot of these courses, most of them have these free and paid schemes, right? So if you want to have a diploma, then you pay. But if you just want to study and become better, you don't necessarily, or you want to try it out, you don't necessarily have to pay. And I would say in EdTech, we see this quite a lot. It's one of the, I would say, one of the most conscious fields that are out there. So if I think they're doing quite a lot when it comes to affordability. They're making information like zero cost to consumer of information. I think they're doing quite good on this field.
That's good. That's a great perspective. Yeah.
I would add on to that. I think that's a great point, because if an online learning platform is making certain courses or certifications, I think they earn back whatever the cost is, let's say from the first 50 users, right? And afterwards, whatever they are making, that's the profit. A lot of times, if the content is not being updated, there's no additional effort or money going in it, right? It's already up there. So there is a possibility for, different companies to come up with such programs where they enable some people every month who get free access. But at the same time, when it comes to talking about expecting the state do that job of creating that infrastructure or giving subsidies or other things, like I know for a fact our government tried in some ways, and one of those ways was to distribute devices, right? So laptops, a lot of laptops were distributed for a couple of years. We don't know where they went or if they went to the right people or not. That's still a question mark, right? But then again, making online platforms is just one bit of it, right? That investing in that infrastructure and giving those devices to the people that you expect to, come towards online learning. I think that's the major challenge if we talk about the developing countries.
Thank you, ladies, for your responses. The next question kind of segues into it. It talks about EdTech and supporting students with disabilities. So how can EdTech support students with disabilities and ensure an inclusive education for all?
Actually, like, it kind of reminds me of this experience. So I was doing some user interviews for a product which was it was an esports platform. So it was basically for the gamers, right? And when I conducted interviews, there was this one child that I talked to. He must be around 16. And while I was conducting his interview, it was all audio. It was an audio call, and he said he cannot turn on his video. And I was like, okay, fine. And he gave me feedback on the product. And afterwards, I was just trying to understand his context as a user or as a persona, right? And turns out that he did not go to school. He was a disabled child. And till COVID, he was going to a regular school in his village. But now he's not going to school anymore because when um, online learning in COVID started, he did not have a nice phone, which could, run all those video calls and stuff like that. But now he has that phone, right? He's playing games on them and he's talking to me for a user interview on that phone. So it means he can, access something useful on that phone too. But despite that, he did not have that awareness that, he can opt for online education platforms where he can still continue his learning without even going to a physical school if that's not physically possible for him or his parents to manage anymore. Or there is still an option. But apparently, I think lack of awareness also plays a lot of role. And if you don't know what's out there for you, or if the solutions do not reach the right audience, it's really, really hard to bridge that gap.
Thank you. Okay. Raluca, I'm going to target this next question to you because you mentioned non-traditional learners. How can EdTech support those non-traditional learners, such as adult learners or those in vocational training programs? Because you mentioned certification or not certification. I, in turn, thought of certification, but whether you're getting it for credit or for graduation, how can EdTech help those non-traditional learners?
I think I have 3 answers for you.
Okay.
As I said, I come from Romania, and in 1999 we had the revolution, I was 14, my brother was 18, and I remember the day when we looked at each other and we said we have so much to catch with. Of course, at school we were learning a lot, but we missed a lot of the other information, pop culture, movies, because we didn't have television and so on. And that was the moment when we planted the seed of constantly learning. I learn at least an hour every day. It makes me depressed if I don't. This is who I am. And even when I'm on vacation, I have multiple platforms as well. And one of the things that it does, it gives me a lot of freedom. It gives me a lot of freedom because I'm equal to anybody else. Many times I don't even have a face. And if we talk a little bit about the previous question, UX-wise, there's so many options now for disabilities. So there would be answer number 1. Answer number 2, one of the things, I come from Bucharest, and because I arrived in the Netherlands, and I really built a beautiful career here, and I was given certain opportunities. And one of the things I realized, so many opportunities, and my first thing was, okay, I want to mentor people. But then about 3 years ago, during the pandemic, I said, who else can I help? And I said, abused women and sex workers. Those are people who most of the times have been ignored, or, their need for growth hasn't been that important. So for me, EdTech can bridge this gap. To answer your question. So it's very interesting that you asked me, so that you felt that, because this is a program I built. It's a 3 years program to help to empower, more than help, empower these people with the use of EdTech, so that they can become the orchestrators. We talk about consciousness for the next for the next tools, because EdTech, there's so much more potential out there. And I'm not referring to AI. I'm referring to, let's say, more human potential. And I do want to bring one topic here, which is maybe the elephant in the room, which is privacy and security. There are really tough times out there for almost all businesses. And EdTech needs to ensure this in order to be successful. I think it's more important than any, if people don't have a say. I'll give you an example. I started a master's, let's say in psychology, something a little bit more niche, but then I would out them. And I don't want to do that. I started a master, and the online platform, you didn't even have multi-factor authentication. But we had to share a lot of our feelings, and we had a lot of homework to put online publicly towards one another. But for me, the fact that the platform was not safe, I couldn't do it. And that was the remark from them. You're doing amazing in the online discussions, but all your written work is so withdrawn because I didn't feel safe on that platform. So it's very important for EdTech to understand this problem. It's more than disability. It's create that space for growth, healthy growth.
No, I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's actually one of the questions that should be posed. So I want to open that up to the other ladies here about the role of data privacy and security in the implementation of EdTech, because I think for the normal user, that's probably not something that crosses their mind, is data and privacy. So what challenges are there when data and privacy is concerned with EdTech that you're aware of?
Data privacy is not a concern only for EdTech. I think it becomes a big issue. I mean, with the emerging technologies, but also with the rise of like AI, for example, artificial intelligence, and so on. Of course, it's very important to take data privacy very seriously, because it helps to establish trust between users, between learners, and EdTech tools. As you know, I mean, in the educational sector, there are a lot of students' data. There are personal data too. Okay, so we have to in French we said in story, we have to develop, I mean, a data ethics culture. To know how to use this data specifically for education and not for like, for instance, for discrimination or for something else. We have to be sure to use it for education purpose only. It's very, very important. And nowadays, I mean, data ethics is very, very important topic that all sectors, not only EdTech, but all sectors have to understand, to master, and to know how to deal with the data. Of course, we have, I think, also to set up policies and guidelines, how to use data. And also, I think we already talked about it, but also digital literacy can help a lot. Not only how to use technology, but also how to use content, how to be responsible using data, how to how to distinguish between information, relevant information, and misinformation, and so on. So maybe Yeah, maybe other panelists can add more to this.
Yeah, I
Thank
would add to what Bentenbi has said. So I think there are like two parts of this whole conversation when it comes to data and privacy. Since I work with a telecom company, right, we collect, I think we have more data than anybody could ever have in the country, right? We have geolocations, we know where they go, which stores they visit, what times are they going there, what kind of brands they prefer, and so on and so forth. It can get into a lot of more detail than that. But at the same time, because the telecom industry is, in comparison to other industry, at least in this country where I am, it's still regulated and it still has to, work under some check and balance and compliance and governance and regulation. So there are so many departments working on that inside the company and ensuring that there are no data breaches from either the employee side or any other side where we, accidentally we don't end up exposing any data of our customers. But at the same time, I think the flip side of the coin is that knowing how to leverage that data for the betterment of the society is something very, very useful. We have that data, but we can't really do much with that, right? And we can't really just sell it off either as a company. We have to keep it with ourselves. But I think that we're sitting on a lot. It's like a honeypot of data, which can be leveraged to solve a lot of problems in terms of security, road safety, and so on and so forth. Like there's so many other domains that where it could be applied, not just education. But I think the other thing which is very important is that the users or the customers or the audience needs to be educated on how to use technology. So there are some sort of new apps and services coming up, for example, which give you small microfinance loans on the spot. And the issue with a lot of those is that people who are not so educated, or even if they are educated, but they do not have a lot of digital literacy, they do not understand that sharing that data or information with those companies or signing or saying yes to something on a phone screen puts you in a contract where a month later, those loan sharks will be hunting you, asking for their money back with interest, right? Even if you got that loan from an online app. It was not a physical person. But they do not have that education. So I think when it comes to data and privacy, there's only so much we can do. But it's very important to educate the end user about what and where they should share their information with.
I fully agree, and I have a metaphor that I use quite often about it. So when cars appeared, there were very few cars. There were no roads, so they had to build roads. They had to build road signs. They had to build rules. They had to give license plates. Then they had to build safer and safer seat belts and I don't know, airbags, and then all these tests and so on, right? Because there's a traffic. But at the end of the day, when you're as a driver in traffic and also as a pedestrian, you're still accountable for your actions.
Yeah.
Now, this is online traffic. And this excuse, I don't know, doesn't go. Because at the end of the day, you are accountable. And, and I think, and that's why the games we do are on paper. Because I want to take people out of the environment to educate them and then put them back in the environment once they have been empowered. I think the many times we put people online because it only has to be online. Like look at all these mobile apps application for banking. They all require you to have, there is this new, I don't know if outside of Europe it is, but here there is this new rule that you can only log in from a mobile device. That really, the elderly people are really excluded. My mom was very smart. My mom is a programmer as well, and she installed an emulator of Android on her desktop, and she uses that. But not everybody knows how to do that, and they're forcing people to be on the device when they are not trained. And I think we have to go, this is where EdTech can help train people how to use this. So it's a bit of a vicious circle, but this is the reality. And I see so many people in traffic, I call it internet traffic, without knowing what they're doing. But it's not their fault because nobody taught them, but then they're still pushed towards go, 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 go.
Yeah, well, that's great. And I appreciate all of your answers. And leading into the user education that most of you mentioned, how can we ensure that EdTech solutions are not only driven by outcomes and profits? They're not profitably motivated. How can we ensure that within the EdTech sector?
But why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, people need to eat. Servers need to be paid. I think money, it used correctly, can do a lot of good. So for me, profit and that is not necessarily a bad thing. A business still needs, it's a business at the end of the day. Charities are, that's a different topic, but most of these are there to make money so that they can reinvest. I donate 2% of my profit towards DevOps days, Ansible boot camps. I do, every time I do a different one but I need to make money in order to give back. There's a circle of abundance. Why are we negating that? I mean, it's a business, needs to make money first to support itself, not beg. Like Wikipedia, all the time, oh, please give me €2, give me €5, or other platforms.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah.
We say not to make money first. Maybe I don't agree, but to be learner-centric first, then make money. If we think about in any now the customer, the user, the learner, the buyer pays. He is well educated. He is socially connected and digitally driven. I mean, he knows a lot about most of educational platforms. He can compare about between education platforms. So I think from my modest perspective that EdTech has to focus on the learner first, and money will come, no worry. If we focus about the learner, money will come. I'm sure.
I disagree, because you still have to pay at the beginning your servers. It's still people want money for those services. I think it's about balance from the beginning. You have to attain that balance.
Yeah, I hear what you're both saying, and I think you both make excellent points, because it does take money to start a business, absolutely. And I think what Bentenbi is saying is keep the end goal in mind. What's the purpose of this EdTech? What's the purpose of creating it?
Absolutely, it should be conscious business. Again, like I said, from my perspective, they give a lot for free. There are a lot, but at the end of the day, we I see a lot, oh, is this up free? Is this free? Whenever something is too free, you're the product.
Yeah, that's true.
We have to challenge a little bit these constructs.
Yeah, I think the other way of seeing this problem is that there are two types of EdTech platforms, right? And the reason that even this question exists is because we are comparing it to state subsidized education in a lot of countries, right? And in some countries, I know that the education is entirely free if you go to a state-owned school. And like in a lot of countries, they provide you discounts or subsidies on it, even if it's not free. But that was the case pre-digital world. But how did it translate into the online world? I don't think it really did, But in some of the systems or in some of the programs or initiatives where the government has partnered up with other platforms or other product companies like this, there is where the that whole concept about not making money might come in, because the state is not supposed to be profiting out of those people, right? But even in that case, you see that ecosystem is only enabled because some business for profit was there. So edX was there already as a platform, and that's why the government can partner up with it and pay some little money to edX to provide a subsidized program for the community, right? So I think it goes both hand in hand. Like there will always be these two types of businesses or two types of programs or takes towards education. But the best way of going about it is to create that balance where, both of these companies exist there privately, but also some sort of programs and initiatives exist to, basically enable the underserved communities.
Thank you. Thank you all for your contribution here. Moving forward, someone mentioned Wikipedia, and obviously it was an EdTech platform, and I immediately thought of YouTube and Google now as in 2023. And so the question is, what strategies can be created to combat misinformation and disinformation through EdTech platforms?
This is a very important question. I mean, can I answer? Give us a little, the question was about strategies, how to put strategies. Yeah, I mean, misinformation is an issue of the digital world in general. Right. Yeah, and as Raluca said before, that user is not educated about how to use these information resources. So, or sources, I mean, how to distinguish between like an academic information, a commercial one, and so on. I think that I don't know if it's possible, but to work and collaborate with for instance, librarians and information professionals, why not? Because I think they have experience in curating relevant and credible information from, as you know, from databases, from maybe open journals, from websites, but at least evaluate this information and analyze. First of all, before analyzing and so on, how can I say it? I mean, be very precise in asking questions, even if we even if we use AI or generative tools like ChatGPT or I don't know what else. We have to be very clear and know how to write a prompt, for instance, okay? And give the tool the right question that we can get the right answer. Whatever the source we use, if we use scientific database, for instance, or education researchers, also we have to evaluate them. Know about the organization that produce this information, being sure that it's inclusive. I think those are some points. I'm not exclusive here, but I wanted to stress this. Yeah,
definitely do your homework on the sources for sure. Absolutely.
I have to admit, I use Google Scholar much more than anything else. So like when I go on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, is this true? I saw one like if you put your face in cold water with ice in it, it reduces the cortisol. So I was like, oh, this looks dodgy. But I went and I researched, and it's true. It's true. So so I think it's about assertiveness. So what I'm trying to get to is EdTech to teach assertiveness as well. That's the best tool for people to, because if you can give people the fish a lot, right? This is what, but we have to, at the end of the day, they have to be able to fish, because there are also a lot of EdTech platforms out there. Come on, there's a lot. Which one do I choose? I know I pay for 3 of them every year, but it took me quite some time to figure out I need this one for that, this one for that, and this one for that. So some are providing me the where I can actually practice code and the provision environments. Those are not very few of there. One that gives me basic, the kicking stuff, and the other one that gives me qualifications. So, but you have to, you know, have the capacity to do the assessment. I think that is very important to teach people.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Adding on to it, another aspect that just occurred to me is how there is so much content on when it comes to professional learning, right? When you are already a professional and you just want to learn about a certain topic or certain area of your domain. And at least I can speak for design itself. There is so much bad quality content out there. Anybody can get up and write about design, and everybody would read it. The thing is that people like those, there are so many fake influencers in the market when it comes to design, in Pakistan as well as abroad, I'm sure, who write so much generic things that I think before ChatGPT, they were the actual ChatGPT, because they used to go through probably 10 articles and then club them into one, and oh, here, I'm going to publish this. And because there is so much bad quality content, it's very hard as a reader or as a learner to decide what kind of content is actually legit, right? People have published case studies about their design processes, they have published case studies about their products, their projects, but you don't know how much of that is true because there is no source to verify that even. So I think it's one of the key things when it comes to learning, because not everybody is learning from online platforms. There are so many other informal sources where we go to as a learner. But I think if we could figure out some way to verify that information or quality of content itself, I'm sure ChatGPT now can help with that. And that would be great. I think that would really help the informal education that goes on daily basis.
And to continue a bit what Ammara said, if you look let's say classic education schools, university, they're all accredited, they all have fixed curriculum, and here it is not. So it is still early days for EdTech. There's still a lot of regulation that needs to happen. And I heard let's say sad and funny thing, beginning of the year, I was at a conference and it was a talk about ISO 27090, which will be about AI, information security with AI. And it was something like, you couldn't agree among them yourselves, you technical people. So we have to come and give you the regulation. And that is the reality, because if you, to answer your question, if they would talk to each other and agree on collectively addressing this problem, we would make so much more progress.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ladies, you have been wonderful. This has been a really great EdTech and how we can help close the educational gap. I think we've talked about the issues and barriers with affordability, students with disabilities, infrastructure, and even, data and privacy rights. And so we're going to conclude the discussion, but I would love to give you all an opportunity to say a few closing remarks about the EdTech industry and how it can actually help close that educational gap. And we'll start it off, Ammara, if you'd like to start it off. And don't feel pressured. I'll give you a few moments to gather your thoughts. But yeah, a few closing remarks from each of you would be great.
Yeah, that's all right. Thanks for being such a lively and fun host. It was really fun. And I'm glad that I was invited here, and it's kind of for me, it's kind of like, all things connecting at one point, because I have been in EdTech, but then I also worked in UX, and then I worked in product, and then I ended up in a telecom company, where I was facilitating design sprints and helping other people solve problems, and also at the same time learn. And then all of a sudden, I was thrown into this situation where I was working with the learning and development department of the team. So that was a whole other aspect that opened up to me after working on an EdTech product, that, okay, this is also like a whole domain when it comes to adult education and adult professional learnings. And I think it's so diverse, and it varies so much from country to country, that it's very hard to compare contexts of different locations in the world. But I think even despite that, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, right? And our problems are kind of nearly the same, no matter how much developed a country we're based in. So I think with that tech, like a lot of the problems, even with developing and developed countries, are kind of similar. So with that, I think I'll hand over it to Raluca.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. My point is that to remember that technology is just a tool. The magic is in us. And for EdTech to be successful, it's about us helping each other beyond the tool to grow. So let's remember that we are human. We should stop, be present, and see if somebody needs our help, how we can make it all better together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bentenbi.
Okay, bring it home.
Oh yeah, I am all ears. I mean, thank you so much for having me. It has been a pleasure to take part in this panel. I mean, now I feel really lucky to come from a country where education is all free, from the primary school to PhD. How lucky I am. Really. I mean, I am advocate of education for all. Education is a human right. Even higher education is a human right. So I will put all my efforts in that. And just to finish, there are even web giants or big companies are doing, I know they are rich, but they are doing a lot in education, like Google, Facebook, Verizon, and Microsoft. They are providing free online courses to people worldwide, and we have to stress these efforts too. So thank you so much, Kate. Thank you, Wasif. Thank you, Nabil. Thank you, ladies, and I hope to meet you again in the future.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, so much. Congratulations. This concludes our panel discussion.